and
Fatty from the famous
yeah, I used to
Five.
think,
Yes.
oh my God, there's a male equivalent of me.
Right.
So in this current day, it is also important that we carry pictures and stories of plus size and on the opposite spectrum, skinny people too.
Kolu, you said that, the size you were really helped in the drag shows that you put on because people look forward to seeing your outfits on you.
Me in a bikini, it was a full house for sure, right? Now, you see, I use actually the advertising company, it was then running with Leo Bennett, who used my size to all my restaurants at that time. I don't have any more restaurants now. So they had everything about me, the larger than life portion, having double portions instead of this miserable small food you see. So the whole advertising campaign was based on large, everything. Portions large, the person large, the chef large, everything was large. The drag shows were a riot. I think we had 10 very successful shows, all full houses. And we just put the tickets out and they were sold out in 2 days. And they were tremendous success. And I think everybody was waiting to look for the one outrageous outfit to the other, because I used to come in backless, almost topless, mini skirts, bikini, everything. So you have to give people a treat. Nobody wants to see a skinny drag queen again, So it was great fun.
I don't know about how the skinny drag queens are going to feel about that comment.
Well, there were many in my show, but I stole the show.
But now, when we did this session in Candy, we had a girl who talked from the audience about melanin-rich skin. That was the first time we had heard dark people being described, so maybe that's the new politically correct way of saying you're a dark person. But Prajwal, has literature played a negative role in the body image discourse, in that often sinister characters are described as dark and large, and heroes and heroines are fair and fine?
Absolutely. Back in the day, the folk stories that we grew up with, the Rakshasa, the demon is always dark. For so many people of my generation and the generation before, we had Enid Blyton, R.J.K. Rowling. And she was a fantastic writer for all intents and purposes, but when you read her books with a changed perspective, you do realize that Gollywog, the dark and ugly curly-haired doll, was actually described thus. Gollywog was dark, Gollywog was ugly. I do think that things have changed now. I would be hard-pressed to find a book where a dark person or a so-called ugly person displays villainous characteristics. But so much of what we've read, so much of what we've grown up with, so much of what we've internalized has been fair is beautiful, dark is ugly. And again, I come from the Himalayas where it was perfectly acceptable to use dark as a pejorative. Dark doesn't have to be an ugly word. Fat doesn't have to be an ugly word. Short doesn't have to be an ugly word, right? But they have become that way now simply because of the way we've employed them. And yeah, literature definitely has a role. To this day, I come across so many women who said that the portrayal of Gollywog in Enid Blyton books scarred them for life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
As a melanin-rich person, it didn't do that to me, I must say. But, I think that kind of thing resonates here as well, because as girls we are told don't go out in the sun too much because you will get burnt and you will get dark, and that happens. So please, if anybody wants to join in, please do, because in Candy we had a lot of opinions from the audience, and I'm sure you have something to say in Colombo as well. But Tina, just to go back to this dark skin, how do you see the media handling that? Do you have dark models? Is it easier to photograph them? do they or do people tend to pick fairer skinned people because they're easier to light? Because I've heard, from sources, they say that girl is beautiful but she's dark, so it's very difficult to photograph her.
With all the shoots we've done for the magazine, I've had the freedom to choose the models we want, and we have used dark skin models, and I think 2 or 3 years ago, our cover was on the beauty of dark skin. A girl from Australia, we featured her, and I think the headline was "Fair isn't always lovely." So Shamali and I have had no qualms in using dark skinned people as models for fashion shoots.
Kolu, what is your body image ideal? Have you given it any thought?
Well, I had to give it a lot of thought because let me tell you, just growing fat and not looking after yourself is certainly not the best thing to do. There's a lot of health issues which come with it, and which I actually suffered a lot of it in exactly over a year ago. I was hospitalized for some other thing, but I was given good advice by the doctor. And I'm proud to say I have lost 37 kilos up to now, and I have 13 more kilos to go. I don't think it's a big, I don't think anybody intentionally wants to eat and get fat. We all eat and hope we don't get fat,
We hope it goes to our toes.
Yeah, we hope it goes anywhere else but other than our bodies. But, I think it's something which you have to manage. And yet on this sort of a diet, I try to stick to it and I think everybody should be a bit considerate about trying to lose weight.
Prajwal, what do you think about that? When you are writing, as a writer, do you think very hard about how am I going to write about the way my character looks and what ramifications that is going to have on my potential reader?
I do think that at the end of the day, we all like watching beautiful people on screen and reading about beautiful people. So we're all guilty there. It's,
correct, yeah.
Why is it that there is a proliferation of filters on your phone? Why is it that all of us look so much better in our photos than we do in person? Why? We're all guilty of all, we are. We do this thing where, every human being I've come across in the last 7 years looks far better in their profile photos than they do in real life. So, there is something to be said about the change coming from within. Am I guilty of putting up the best photo that I have on my Instagram profile and Facebook profile? Yes, I am. I see two people very, very eager to quip in, so I'm going to defer to them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Prajwal raised an interesting point. Why do we always post the best pictures on Facebook profiles? Because the people around us are very critical. Every person in this audience has looked at someone and said, oh, she's dark, she's fat, she's ugly, she's short.
Is that true? Is that true?
I challenge anyone to say they haven't done that. That's why we put the best possible picture out there to prevent that sort of talk. And that sort of talk is rife in the city we live in because it's like a goldfish bowl.
And you were saying something about you came back and met up with some friends and you didn't recognize them. Or some people you knew.
We had a school reunion about 3 Sundays ago, and then a couple of days later I bumped into a girl and I couldn't recognize her because she put filters on her Facebook profile, and I'm looking and thinking, is this the same person I saw? And it's very confusing because I'm looking at them thinking, oh my God, what's her name?
And, sorry, to continue from what Kolu was talking about, regarding weight and health problems, how is it that we talk about weight and health problems so much, but don't talk about some skinny person having a myriad of health issues? It's precisely because I think the health issues are secondary. It's all
appearance. Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
all about appearance.
All very superficial, and that's what it is.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's true. But now, going on today's trends, if you go on to TikTok, you see a lot. There are a couple of 3-4 people, a Pakistani gentleman, an English guy, I see. They are huge, and they are having millions of followers, and they are making loads of money. So they are creating another fashion here by just being completely overweight, and making pots of money. And I mean, you had to follow those people because it's quite crazy. You must follow the comments.
Right.
They're all insults, and then he takes the insults and make that into another show. So it's quite hilarious, you know.
And I think, I mean, any kind of comment is a good thing on social media, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's positive or negative, it still makes you money. But culturally, I mean, where are we with body image? Where do you think, Tina? I mean, you work, in the fashion sort of, you're more in touch with that sort of area of things. Where do you think culturally? I mean, because I don't think that our great-grandparents and grandparents were so concerned about, what shape they were. I mean, so have we kind of devolved?
No, but I think they also are consciously getting, especially the daughters, to be thin and try to be fair and lovely because of marriage purposes.
But then after marriage?
After marriage, that's not their problem, no? That's a husband's problem.
Prajwal, you're bursting to say something. No?
I think, okay, we have
Sorry.
someone in the audience. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Please, can we have a mic?
Yeah, I feel that the good figured and pleasant looking models can be really good to look at. But then what about their feeling of self-esteem and their happiness? Are they really happy? Aren't they also being abused and getting unnecessary attention? So this is something that we average weight people should be considering. Not only the looks, because we don't know how that person is feeling inside at that point.
Wonderful point, actually, because in that movie, Jia, she had huge issues with her weight, I think, and she used to go for, colonic irrigation or something before every shoot or something. And I mean, those must be very painful procedures. Tina, I mean, you must be meeting lots of models. I mean, do you have any experience?
Not with people who've had like plastic surgery and stuff, but just like the lady said, yes, if you're super thin, how does it affect your self-esteem and stuff? But then you can turn it on us and say, how does it affect us when people are negative about us? So it cuts both ways. So I don't think it's only applicable to the super thin, it's also applicable to people like us who are super large.
So my really big question is this: why are we living in the 21st century, and why have we not evolved enough to stop being so preoccupied with this outward sort of husk? What is this huge preoccupation with this, when there is so much more to us, as people? I mean, we are intelligent, we are smart, we are funny, but nobody really sometimes even sees that if they don't like what you look like on the outside. Kolu.
And another thing, I don't know whether it's a very Sri Lankan thing, but it's as soon as you go into some place, or anyone, not only me, you, anybody walks in, the first thing they say, my God, you're looking so pulled down, or my goodness, why have you put on so much of weight?
Yes.
Sometimes I think it's not that they really want to be personal, but it's like an icebreaker or a conversation break or some way to start a conversation. So then you get on to either your bad health or you ate some pudding or something like that. But I think that is one of the reasons. I don't know whether people are really obsessed. None of my friends around me are obsessed about it because they just slapped me a long time ago. So I thought, I'm sure they were quite happy with my size. But
Maybe somebody who's not from Sri Lanka can tell us about icebreaker kind of conversations when you meet people.
Hello, this is not relevant to that question.
That's okay, that's fine.
To answer the icebreaker thing, I can definitely say that historically in my family, all the women in our family have suffered with body issues, whether they are openly, comfortable to admit that or not. And yeah, it's always the older generation like saying, "God, you put weight on," and it is an icebreaker, but it's just so uncomfortable and it runs so deep, especially for women. But what I wanted to say was about the whole social media thing. Like, I've been thinking about this lately, how it doesn't benefit anyone. Like, when you put a picture up that's your best picture, it doesn't benefit you because you don't think you look necessarily good in all the others. And then it doesn't benefit the people seeing that because they think, "Oh, she looks good, I look like shit." So it's this constant cycle it's a vicious cycle where nobody's benefiting, and I don't know why any of us are continuing to like play this game because nobody is coming off well from it. So yeah, I think.
Thank you. That's very useful. And what has been your experience with, your contemporaries, where this whole social? I'm interested to know. I'm sure the panelists too and other people. If you could tell us a little bit about, how it has impacted people of your age group and your peers.
Yeah, there's just obviously a lot of pressure, which everybody knows. It's talked about so much, social media pressure. But I see people who I know what their personal lives are like deep down, and if I was to just look at their Instagram, I would think their whole life is amazing, and but I know the truth, and so it's making me now, whenever I put a picture up or I notice how I have this kind of like flicker of who's going to see it, who do I want to put this up for, this whole stream of consciousness. And so lately I've started to like come back to myself and think, well, what do I want to see? What would I want to see? And so, yeah, just speaking the truth on social media rather than continuing to play this bullshit game.
Okay, and I suppose there's a social compulsion, isn't there, Prajwal? Now that there is social media to kind of post everything, like, hey, I was here, I look this good. Do you think there's a compulsion almost now?
Yeah, but
To
can we look
display
at the
yourself.
positives? We're having a discourse on body image at a literature festival. Isn't that wonderful?
I think it's wonderful.
We are also using social media. I mean, what Kolu said about all these plus-size models using social media in order to create awareness, making a sorry, there's someone in the audience.
Yeah, there's somebody in the audience.
Yeah.
Continue and then I'll finish
Okay.
after you're done.
Yeah, carry on.
No, carry on. Join in. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so something that I was thinking about through the entirety of this session.
Session is fine. Yeah.
Way to hold the mic. Okay.
Okay.
So one thing I was thinking about is when I was a teenager, we had a lot of transformation movies, and from middle school to high school, I know that a lot of kids in my grade would either go on massive diets, or for me particularly, like use fairness creams to get lighter. And I remember distinctly when I went from O-levels to A-levels, I was suddenly fairer after school, and I mean after holidays, and everyone was wondering what happened. I guess the fairness cream worked. But even with movies during that time, we had a lot of like Cinderella Story. I'm sure everyone binges on these movies even now, and they're very famous to have these transformational movies, where makeover movies. I wonder if kids now still feel the urge to transform themselves at some point. I feel like at my kids my age had that when they were from the middle school to high school era. I don't know if or each stage in life, we have that transformation where we have to, have this makeover where suddenly people see us and they're like, oh, holy shit, is this really you? So I wonder if that's still present, and how did you deal with it? How did you guys deal with it during your age and when you guys were teens to adults? And
Thank you for calling us old people, but yes, we will take the question. Tina, you want to go first?
Thankfully, I grew up in an era that didn't have social media, and I was the chubbiest amongst my friends, and they accepted me for who I was. I didn't go overboard with diets and stuff in my early teens, I just thought if this is the way I'm going to be, so be it. But later on, I tried every single diet under the sun. It worked, it didn't, and I am just kind of happy the way I am. So that's my position. I wasn't pressurized into anything.
Olu?
Yeah, so yet again, we are all born in an era where there were no social media, but I love fairy tales. I absolutely love fairy tales, and I yet believe in fairy tales, and I yet hope some miracles would happen.
So Kolu is waiting for a transformation. Prajwal, I think you grew up in the age of social media.
No, I'm a lot older than that. Thank you, though. That's
Oh.
a compliment. But I am so thankful that I didn't come of age during the Facebook, Instagram period. I do not know what that would have done to my self-esteem. But this may not be the answer you want to hear. I used to think I was the cat's whiskers when I was a teenager.
He still does, I think.
So I was perfectly happy with the way I looked, and sorry, this is a disappointing answer for you. But part of the reason for that could have been because I didn't grow up under this heavy social media influence. Does that make sense? Like, I feel sorry for my friends' kids who are 8 or 9 and have found themselves, they've moseyed their way to social media, creating these fake accounts, looking a lot older than they are, and it's quite tragic. I mean, kids don't get to be kids anymore. But I also understand that's a question that every generation has about the generation following them, etc., etc. But yeah, like mine was a pretty okay teenage adolescence. Sorry.
But honestly, a lot of what you said resonated with me because I was dark-skinned and now miraculously I've got light-skinned. The only reason, or lighter-skinned I should say, the only reason is I'm not in the sun so much. I'm indoors and working. And also, I was fat in school. I have classmates in the audience, and they used to call me fatty, but they won't own to it now. They're all very politically correct and good about it. But I mean, I didn't care. I think I was bossy and loudmouthed, and sort of people were scared of me, so they left me alone. But I think in a way that's a defense mechanism. I mean, I think Tina, you said something about that, right? That you would wallop anybody who sort of crossed you.
Yeah, like Kolu in school, nobody dared to come and mention anything about my weight because they would have got such a tongue lashing from me. So I think they thought it's better to keep their mouth shut. But unfortunately, it's my own family members who think they have the right to keep telling me, oh, you're overweight. If you don't go on a diet and lose weight, you'll die. And like I told in Candy, I had a very fractious relationship with my own father. Every time he used to see me, the first thing he used to say is, you better do something about your weight. Don't come and tell me if you're in a hospital. I'm not going to come and see you. And as a result of that, I actually grew apart from him. And I think for the first time in my life, when I came down 3 weeks ago, he didn't mention anything about my weight. And that honestly, it made me really happy.
I think thanks Tina, thank you very much. I think we have another question. Yes, please, go ahead.
Hello, hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I was waving my hand for 10 minutes because I was in front of the camera and I'm small. You couldn't see me. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Actually, when I was in school,
Yeah.
I was the first in line because most of the time I'm the shortest person in the room and the smallest.
Okay.
Because of that,
Yeah.
most of the time I was selected to do speeches in the morning assembly. So due to becoming short and smaller, my confidence grew as a public speaker. So there are
wonderful.
positives in a way. And I also want to comment about social media. Because I was born in 2000, I think of social media as sort of a bipolar situation, where all of us have created certain personas in social media and we act it out. Like Shakespeare said, we are players and we can have two roles. So for example, every person I know and I believe they act in social media according to the image that the society has made. And I think in a way that's fair. Act according to what you like to be for the society. But in the real society, act.
So you're saying they have kind of created their perfect image of themselves.
Yes, there's this movie and book called Ready Player One. Where
Okay.
you can become an avatar.
Avatar, okay.
So
Yeah.
be an avatar in social media, but be your true self in the real society. That's sort of an idea that I came up with right now. So yeah. That's
Thank you. And you brought in another aspect of the body because we've been really focusing on size, but we didn't really talk about the tall, short of it. And there are so many other aspects. Yes, we have another question. Okay, please go ahead.
I'm gonna speak about something personal. When I was schooling, like when I was in grade 10, like 8 years back, that's the first time I knew I was a fat girl. I was like 65 kilos those days. No one told me, not my parents. I always like said that I'm beautiful. Maybe that's a lie, but at school, some of my friends were like, "Mama, like that."
Okay, yeah,
That's the first time I knew that I was fat, and it was really, I don't know, I was really shocked because I didn't know that I was fat. And then, of course, I was willing to lose some weight, and I lost like 30 kilos. I was only 65, and I went to like 35 kilograms, and that's the worst
Yes.
in my life because I didn't have any nutrition like to survive.
Yes.
I was sick every day. So my time was, I'm going to say, is just being thin and having a size 0 figure is not the perfect thing. So like recently, I have put like 3 kilos back, like now I'm 43 kilograms. Still I have body dysmorphia. I feel like I'm very fat now.
Yes. I suppose, yes, you know, they say that you will always be a fat person in a thin body. But I'm so glad that you also talked about the health aspect of it, because nobody looks at you and says, wow, you look great, you look healthy. They will, as Kolu said, you have either put on or pulled down. Kolu, do you want to add
But
something?
also you must remember there are some people who have some illnesses and they are a big size because of that. So one has to be very careful when you open your mouth there and start talking about being fat. And that's another question.
Oh, good, great. There was a lady here who wanted to ask. Okay.
Just to add on to that, it's really important that we understand that being overweight could be due to genetic issues and other underlying health conditions, right? So, and I think literature has a big role to play, like arts has a big role to play, kind of making that more evident, because people do feel like their self-esteem drops more than anything else when they're not understood. Because genetically I'm a big person, so no matter what I do, I don't think I can actually lose so much weight. And that had a huge impact in my childhood, and it's only now that I'm even wearing clothes like this. My parents would say, oh, don't show your shoulders, or, what is this, you're too big, and all of that. So it took a long time to really come out of that. So I think it's really important that people acknowledge that there could be so many reasons why people are overweight.
Prajwal, you think there will be a greater sensitivity?
I think there already is. Thank you for what you said. I think there already is. After our session in Candy, a group of other novelists and I got together to make a list of the books we've read in the past 10 years where unconventionally, where people who do not satisfy whatever our conventions of contemporary conventions of beauty are, and how they've been portrayed. And it is very, very far removed from what we grew up reading. And I'm even willing to lay a wager that no so-called big person or short person or dark person is actually going to be a villain in books that have been written in the past 10, 15 years. So there is a degree of sensitivity there, which is wonderful, but again, that could open up I'm not going to get into this, it could open a can of worms with regards to political correctness and literature, but there's already a session for that tomorrow. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
thank,
we're not getting
thank you for
there.
what you brought up. I think this
Okay, we have one more question here.
No, I was just, you were all talking about sort of parents and the role that they play in terms of how you feel about yourself as a child and what your parents say. And I was just thinking as a mom of two and of young kids that it's really important how we speak to our kids and how we try and make compliment them, but not based on their appearance, and not everything is about how they look. And I think making that conscious effort to kind of say things that are about what they're doing or their personality rather than how they look. And I think it's something that we all have to train ourselves to do. And it's important to kind of always have that in the back of our heads.
Thank you. Yes, I completely agree. Tina, did you want to add to that?
No, I want to answer that lady.
Lady's question. Yeah, go ahead.
You're
Have a mic?
absolute-
You have a question.
No, what she spoke about.
Okay.
I absolutely agree with you. Sometimes people look at us and think, oh my God, she's eaten her way to that size. But they don't realize we may have, as females, we may have hormonal issues. I am not shy to say I have polycystic ovarian syndrome and fibroids, right? We as women need to talk about this. The more we hide these issues and not talk about it, other people, if we talk about it openly, people like you might think, oh gosh, she has the same issues as me, and not feel shy or not feel different. So as women, we need to talk about this and we need to address these issues publicly.
Thank you, Tina. Any more? Oh, wonderful. We've got another question then. I think one here. Yeah.
More about a statement, actually. I mean, I've worked in Senegal, Kenya, Nigeria, where plus-size women are celebrated. People come to me and say, is your husband really in love with you because you look tiny? And I'm not, but in their context, right? If you look at Renaissance women, they were much bigger. It was a sign of wealth, and I would even say up to 2 generations ago, if you were heavier, it was you were wealthier or you were better fed or whatever. So this new thing that we're talking about is really a perversion in the last 2 generations, maybe 3. It definitely leads to globalization when we see models from different countries not looking the way we do. I mean, I remember the aha moment came was when I was in Khajuraho and I was looking at the frescoes, and all the women looked like me, and I'm like, wow. And so I think we need to contextualize both what's happening now and what happened in the past, and to see if there's a happy medium we can walk.
Prajwal, I think maybe that's something you could explore. Or would you be interested in exploring something like that in your literature?
yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for bringing that up. Yeah.
We had another question. Yeah.
I know we're addressing body image, which is a physicality, but what I observe and what I think, and please forgive me, this is my personal opinion.
That's quite all right.
But we have, I think a person's worth is becoming more and more pegged on their physical appearance. Yes, social media and all of that has contributed to it, but we do have an opportunity, again, in media and literature to change that in some way, to advocate in a different way. So not a question really, more a request to the media and writers is like, why don't we try and focus more on the story that are beyond just physicality. Let the characters' achievements, like what they did, experiences, speak more than what they look like, right? And traditionally, I think, if you go back to fairy tales and all of that, so it shows that as humans, we were obsessed, or we are still very obsessed with our physical appearances. And maybe in a way, it projects who we are to the world, but we can consciously address it, because by feeding it, which is what I believe media and literature is doing today, they are just propagating it and making it worse, and it shows very much in the younger generations.
Thank you for that, because in Candy, Louis de Bernier made the observation that a lot of writers tend to think about the two senses, sight and maybe the sound, but that we actually have 5 senses. So he's very conscious in his writing of bringing in atmosphere and all of that, so that there's a more holistic characterization and contextualization. And maybe that's a particular skill, or that's maybe that's not a very common skill in a lot of literature, because we tend to be quite visual. But that's very interesting that you said that, because he made that comment, and I think a lot of writers also heard him and took that on board. Thank you. We have one more question. This is the last one, I'm afraid, because we are just about... 2 more? Do I have time? 2 more? Okay. She says okay. All right.
Hi again. Just one last question. A lot of spaces where we discuss the body is very discussion-driven rather than solution-driven. I was wondering, how can we find a solution to it in important spaces such as schools and university? I mean, I guess university discusses a bit more, but in schools where we can set a foundation for everyone from, from primary school to understand that there are different bodies, different mentalities, caste, creed, and how do we set that up in schools is my question.
Okay. Tina?
Do we really need to set something like that up in schools? I mean, as a mother of a son, I am trying to bring up a child who is respectful towards women. So we need to shape, or we need to teach our children to accept people for who they are, whatever their shape, whatever their size, their color, as it has to happen in our homes. No, we can't rely on schools to do that. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if you have chosen to be a parent, you can't abdicate the education of your child to an institution. I mean, you have a responsibility. Prajwal, you're nodding.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Yeah.
Kolu, do you want to say anything about that? There's one more question, Kolu says. Yes.
More than a question, it's basically, I think, society, we've all striven for perfection. And I think we have left out one very important area that can make a change, and that is media and advertising. Right? Advertising, to me, is one of the biggest sources of the issues, where we have created this Fair and Lovely, using only slim models in our advertisements. I come from an advertising background, right? So I will raise my hand and say we are also guilty of this. But that is what has happened. We have created this. So you can't just expect parents to take on this whole thing, but they are also exposed to an environment. That environment has to change. So we should start with how corporates perceive what we should be used as a model, what kind of message we should put out there. So all that is...
No. I don't know whether, Tina, you agree. We are all thinking people. I mean, I agree to an extent, but you also have to make your own choices and your own decisions. What do you think?
No, as much as what Keith says is true about advertising playing a huge role, we as parents should inculcate those values and beliefs in our children in the home environment.
Yeah. We have another question? No. Ranmali has a question. Can we better wrap it up? Ranmali, I'm so sorry. Okay. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience. We've had a really good discussion. Thank you very much.